In one of the first videos, we did look at some quotes from Josephus that did reveal issues with the conventional idea of the layout of Jerusalem. And I promised in one of those first videos to discuss the three towers that play a prominent role in Josephus' story. Those towers were called Hippicus, Mariamne, and Phasealus. And the reason why I have put this topic at the end of the series, or almost at the end, is the fact that it is a complicated story and there is a considerable chance that it ain't an argument after all for either of the options. And the options being, again, is this the temple or is this Fortress Antonia? Now, why we discuss it then, you might ask. Well, that's a good question, and I will come back on that in a minute. But let me first explain the situation before we dive into the details about the towers. Now, Josephus did mention these towers at least 3 or 4 times throughout his books. That even the painters have noticed, because when we look at this painting you see 3 towers here dominating the skyline of Jerusalem, and that is without a doubt something to do with those 3 towers. So probably this painter has read Josephus as well, and Josephus informs us multiple times how big they were and why their names were what they are, but one tiny detail is missing. He fails to make clear where those towers were located in Jerusalem. And that is very annoying. Even more annoying is that one of these towers plays a pivotal role in Josephus' description of the walls of Jerusalem. Now, how does this affect the dilemma we are discussing here in this video series? Now, my contention is that based on our knowledge of the trajectories of the ancient walls and based on the description of Josephus of these walls, there are 2 configurations with respect of these towers possible. And one of the configuration doesn't affect our dilemma at all, but the other configuration excludes the possibility that this here is the Temple Mount. That configuration leads to the logical conclusion that this is Fortress Antonia. Now, there are many problems with this issue, apart from the fact that Josephus is never explicit about the tower's respective locations. Also, the situation the text suggests feels often contradictory and sometimes even ambiguous. Now, there is a strong suggestion in the text that these towers, Hippicus, Mariamne, and Phasealus, are geographically connected. And I will put all kind of links to those texts down in the description. It are just suggestions. The text isn't explicit. And it would go too far to discuss them all, and so you have the possibility to read them yourself. But for instance, there was once a fire, and all the 3 towers were affected. And of course, that suggests a somewhat geographical connection between the 3. There were once Roman soldiers who came under attack by the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and then they flew out of their camp to those 3 towers, which again strongly suggested a connection between those 3. Those were probably in the vicinity of that camp. And there is a suggestion in the text that these towers were in the vicinity of a palace. Now, there are 2 palaces in Jerusalem. That was the palace of Herod on this side of the city, and there is the palace of the Hasmonean on the fortress Antonia. And that makes sense, because it was Herod who built those towers, and Fortress Antonia as well as his own palace were both built by him as well. So it feels natural that these towers are associated with one of those, either the Herod's palace or Fortress Antonia, being this Fortress Antonia or being that Fortress Antonia. That doesn't matter in this case. Now let us have a look at the most important text fragment in which Josephus describes the walls of Jerusalem just prior to the war. He gives this description in the Jewish Wars, book number 5, and that is chapter 4, paragraph 2. It is a very sloppy description, in my opinion. And if you look at the reconstruction of some medieval artists based on this text, well, as you can see, it is not even close. And we can't blame this artist which made this picture, because he didn't know anything about the trajectories of the walls in Jerusalem, and he had to do it with Josephus' description. Now there are some other issues as well. Josephus assumes in his description, and we will follow those description in a minute, but he assumes that he assumes knowledge his readers never had. He is using all kind of location identifiers, which without a doubt did mean a lot to Josephus himself, being a resident of Jerusalem once, but it did mean nothing to his contemporary readers in Rome, and to us 21st century readers even less. But we do have one advantage: we have a clue where those walls were at that time. These trajectories you see here aren't disputed as far as I know. Maybe this wall here was decommissioned by the time of Josephus, maybe, but for the rest, it's more or less uncontested. Now, what I want to do is to reconstruct what Josephus actually meant based on his description, knowing the layout of the walls. And in order to make it slightly more easy, we'll put the text of this description on the screen as well, so that we can follow more or less what he is doing. Now, a warning in advance, you need some imagination, I can tell you. And as I said before, Jewish War, book 5, chapter 4, paragraph 2. And what I will do is to follow this description here in two scenarios. And the first scenario is the scenario which is the conventional wisdom, namely that the Tower Hippicus is located here in this location. Maybe I haven't told you before, but the Tower of Hippicus plays an important role in the description, because 3 of the 4 walls he is describing start at the Tower of Hippicus. So therefore that is very important. And my contention is that Hippicus can only be placed in 2 locations to make some sense of what he is saying. And one of them is being on this side, and that is the conventional opinion, more or less. Now let's see what he has to say. Now that wall began on the north at the tower called Hippicus and extended as far as Xistus, a place so called, and then joining the council house ended at the west cloister of the temple. So that is the first part. And we start apparently at the Tower of Hippicus. And then we have to go as far as Xistus. Now Xistus, there is a location called Xistus here located, so maybe this Xistus is here. And we have to end at the east wall of the temple. Now we are already at the east wall of the temple when this is the temple, but we have to go in that direction if the temple is over here. So that is the first part. And somewhere is this courthouse, apparently, but we don't know, or the council house, but we have no information about that at all. The second description started here, but if we go the other way, westward, it began at the same place and extended through a place called Betzo. So we started here at Hippicus again, we are going westward, and then on a certain moment we came at a location called Betzo, apparently somewhere here, or here, we don't know, to the gate of the Essenes, so somewhere the gate of the Essenes must be here. And after that it went southward, having its bending above the fountains of Siloam. So we have here a bending on the fountains of Siloam, where it also bends again towards the east at Solomon's Pool and reaches as far as a certain place called Ophlas, probably Ophel, where it joined the eastern cloister of the temple. So then we are here. And if this is the temple, then he probably incorporates this wall as well in his description. Then the second wall, so the third piece of wall he is about to describe, took its beginning from that gate which they called Gennet. Now we don't know where Gennet is, which belonged to the first wall, so it must somewhere along this black line. It only encompassed the northern quarter of the city and reached as far as the Tower of Antonia. Well, now it becomes a little bit clear. It is a wall that encompasses the northern quarter, so he is describing this wall here, and it started at Gennet. So Gennet is apparently somewhere here. And then we have to follow this one, and we end at Antonia, being it either here or there. Now, then the third wall, and that is the fourth description of a wall piece here he gives us. The third wall was at Tower Hippicus, whence it reached as far north as the north quarter of the city, and the Tower of Phasealus. Now the Tower of Phasealus we know, that one is over here. In another part he is telling explicitly that this tower is located on the northwest side of the city. So what he is describing, he starts at Hippicus. On a certain moment he is passing the Phasealus, and then he goes to somewhere where the monument of Helen apparently is, and the king's graves, and then he passes the sepulchral caverns of the kings and bend again at the tower of the corner at the monument which is called the monument of Fuller, apparently somewhere here, and then he joins the wall at the valley of called the valley of Kidron, so here. So this might be a possibility. It has some disadvantages. He doesn't describe this fragment here of the fortress Antonia or the temple. He doesn't describe it at all. Or if this is Antonia, he forgets to describe this one, and this one he is not describing as well. And to call this tower, identify this tower as it began on the north is also a stretch, but maybe. The alternative I am about to tell you is not much better, I think slightly, but not much. Let me see. I'll remove those. And then I'll start over again, but at another starting point for Hippicus. Hippicus is now here, but the alternative location of Hippicus is here. And I will try to follow his description again, but now based on Hippicus on this location. And what is it what we get? We start in the north somewhere, called Hippicus, and we go as far as Xistus, apparently here, and then we end it at the west cloister of the temple, which is here. Now let me put this other alternative situation with regard to the temple, because in this situation only this option is available, I can tell you. Let's see, where did we continue? But if we go the other way westward, starting at the same place, so we start again at Hippicus and we go westward, we come to a place called Betzo, and then made a turn and go to the from Betzo to the Gate of Essence, apparently here, and after going southward, having a bending above the fountains, and then return to a place called the Ophel, and then we are back again at the eastern cloister of the temple. And when we now try to reconstruct the second wall here, it took its beginning from the gate which they called Gannet, so apparently somewhere here, and it encompasses the northern quarter and ends at Antonia. So what we don't got is this. Started with Gannet, it encompasses the northern quarter and ends with Antonia. Now the third wall starts again with Hippicus, and it reaches as far north and to the Tower of Phasealus, and then so far extended till it came over against the monuments of Helena, apparently here, and then extended farther to a great length and past the sepulchral caverns of the kings, apparently somewhere here, and bent again at the Tower of the Corner, at the monument which they called the Monument of Fuller, apparently somewhere here, and then we are joining the old wall at the valley called the Valley of Kidron. So the disadvantage of this description is that we are missing this piece here, but it looks as if we have more of the existing walls covered. But there's also another disadvantage of this description when we have a close look at the description here. It was Agrippa who encompassed the parts added to the old city with this wall, which had been all naked before. And it looks as if he is describing this part, these walls here. So that is in favor of the first option, because this option here was only added in the 50s. So when the war was about to break out, the wall here was only 20 years old, and that is what he was telling here. And if you analyze the text, it favors more the first option. But anyway, the point being is that my contention is that both are possible as far as this description goes, and there are a few text fragments that are in favor of the Hippicus being here, and there are a sum which favors the location of Hippicus in that location. And maybe I will discuss those another time in more detail. But the end of the story is that I am thinking that this is a slightly bigger chance that it is here located than it is there. But if it's over here, then this is Fortress Antonia, that is for sure. So when Hippicus is here, it doesn't influence our dilemma. If it's here, then it excludes the option of this being the temple. Now, what I want to achieve with this video is that I want to discuss the consequences of Hippicus being here, because that has consequences for the position of some other location identifiers. And I want to discuss those briefly, and hopefully someone will tell me whether he has other information independent from Josephus about these locations. Let me first tell you, when Hippicus is here, then the Helena monument is over here, and the women's towers are here, and the king's graves are here, and the Fuller monument is here, and the Essenes and the gate of the Essenes is over here. And Gennet, the Gennet gate, is somewhere here. And Mariamne and Phasealus are located on the corners of Fortress Antonia. In the other scenario, that Hippicus is over here, then those towers Mariamne and Phasealus are over here. The gate of Kennet is somewhere located here, and you see that the Fuller monument, and the King's Graves and the Helen's monument are repositioned to the north side of the city instead of on the west side of the city. And the gate of the Essenes is located here. So my question is there any information available about these locations, these location identifiers I just called, independent from the source of Josephus, because that can potentially influence the likelihood of Hippicus being here or there, with the importance being when Hippicus is over here, then this is Fortress Antonia. Now, thank you for listening.